Mr. President, I told you, I think it's best you stop calling this number. Hawaii? 6 months after announcing the Xperia 1 Mark III, and 10 months since the Xperia Pro went on sale, Sony has announced another new smartphone, the Xperia Pro-I. Like its predecessor, the Pro-I offers a full range of impressive smartphone capabilities that make it a formidable competitor in the market. However, Sony have also made it clear that this phone is all about the camera. They don't even really call it a smartphone. On the Sony website, it's described as a 1-inch image sensor camera with full smartphone capabilities. That's also why it's called the Pro-I. The I stands for imaging. This phone offers Pro imaging. The aforementioned 1-inch sensor is currently the largest size available in a smartphone camera, and the Xperia Pro-I is the world's first smartphone with that size sensor and phase detection autofocus. The camera can shoot 12-bit 4K HDR video at up to 120 frames per second, and captures 12 megapixel stills at up to 20 frames per second continuous shooting, with AF/AE on the 24mm camera. Another cool feature of the smartphone camera is its dual mechanical aperture, which allows you to switch between f2 and f4 apertures. You can literally see the aperture changing if you zoom in. Aperture. It's mechanical. What can I say? Sony have also released a vlogging monitor to go with the Xperia Pro-I, reiterating that this camera was really designed for use by vloggers and content creators. Knowing that, I challenged our video producer Alex to shoot an entire product video using only the Xperia Pro-I. First, we're going to take a look at the video that he produced, then we're going to talk about the challenges of using the Pro-I, the benefits, and generally how the production went. Let's take a look.
We're here today in Focus Camera Studios shooting our product video. The product we'll be shooting today is Sony's WH-1000 XM4 noise cancelling headphones. And of course, we'll be shooting it with our Sony Xperia Pro-I smartphone. We're shooting our product on black plexiglass with an all black background. Wow. We're shooting today on black plexiglass with an all black background. As our key light, we're using the Aperture 300D Mark II with a softbox, and then we're also using the Nova P300C as an edge light behind me. So we'll be shooting on Sony's own Cinema Pro app, which comes on the phone. This is gonna let us manage all of our settings manually, as you would with a normal camera in manual mode. So what we'll be doing, we'll be shooting in 4K resolution at 120 frames per second. That way in post, if we want to slow anything down, we have that option. If we want to use speed ramps, we'll have that option as well. But because of that, we're going to have to use their 24mm camera in order to shoot 4K. Aside from that, we're going to use their Venice CS look, as well as shoot at f4. Even though we have the option to stop down to f2, for a product video like this, we're really going to want to shoot at f4 in order to preserve more of the details on the product itself. So the first shot, we're going to start with the product box open, and I'm going to pull away from it. Brendan here is going to, meanwhile, who's hiding under the table, push the box so it closes. Then in post, we're going to reverse it all, so it looks like I'm pushing in and the box is opening slowly. Just try it out. Camera is rolling, and close. So we've got the next set of shots lined up here. What we did was attach the headphones to some fishing wire hanging from the boom arm so we can have it floating. And I changed a few of the camera settings around because reviewing the footage yesterday, I just wanted to get a little bit of a better image. We had it on ISO 1000 yesterday. I brought that down to 500. In order to compensate for that, we introduced 2 more lights into the shot, as well as stop down to f2 instead of f4. So hopefully we're still gonna get a good looking shot with that, and we'll see. So for this next setup, I've got clear plexiglass between two tables, and then I put the headphones face down on the plexiglass. I'm gonna shoot from underneath it, and then above it, I've got the Aperture 300X right above it, and hopefully it's gonna create this sort of silhouette look that I'm going for. I'll just give you guys a look to show you the setup. So yeah, we've got the headphones face down, the aperture directly above it. I'll probably be shooting down there. I don't know if I'm gonna use any lights from below or not, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully it makes a cool shot. So I just finished shooting the product video for the Sony Xperia Pro-I. A lot of fun to use. We decided why not set up like a little photo shoot for it. So we're gonna use the same product, the headphones, the WH-1000 XM4 Sony headphones. And I'm gonna take some pictures. We're gonna use some continuous lighting just because we're in the studio so I can control the lights pretty well. And we'll see what this can do.
So Alex has just finished shooting the Sony WH-1000 XM4 headphone product video on the Xperia Pro-I. Alex, tell us about how it went.
It went well. I think that I was really impressed with how the Sony Xperia Pro-I did. I have like an iPhone 6, so...
Old school.
Old school. So I think like when you do the exposure on that, you know, it has like the little sundial, which is just like, now it just feels like caveman level stuff.
This is an advanced camera. This is more camera than phone.
It's more camera than phone, Sony.
Can you tell us a bit about how it compared to using an A7 III, which is the usual camera we would use for a video like that?
Yeah. I mean, it really wasn't extremely different because it can shoot in 4K, which the A7 III can shoot, but it can shoot 4K 120, which the A7 III cannot do. So that was really cool. Another really cool thing about shooting with a phone for product videos was that it's way more obviously lightweight and flexible. So I can do a lot of shots that would either require something like a gimbal or just like more fancy rigging work for the A7 III, but because it's just handheld and you can really move it anywhere you want, you could do some funky stuff with it and get really creative.
So Alex, I know you shot in 4K at 120 frames per second initially, and then ended up switching. Can you talk a bit about what happened there, what the challenges were of each frame rate?
Yeah, there were actually some, and I was definitely cautious when it says that this camera can shoot 4K 120, because I'm like, I don't even think the new A7 IV can do that. So can a phone really do that? It is 4K 120, but with some setbacks. So for the first one, when you do import it into Premiere Pro, you're gonna get black bars on top because the aspect ratio is gonna be off. So you do have to crop in at 4K, which is fine if you know in advance that that's gonna happen, and you can shoot for that in mind. Another thing is that since it is putting a lot of strain on the phone, there will be an overheating problem. So I think I shot for like 10 minutes straight and I got the overheating warning, which it wasn't that bad. I let it cool off for maybe like 5 minutes and it got better. It was also underneath all the lights and everything, so that didn't help.
Yeah, I think the first day you shot for a while at 120 frames per second, and we didn't have any issues. But
drove it to its limit.
What about battery life? How much juice did you get out of it without having to charge?
It was pretty great. I shot like 2 days. I was shooting all day and I only had to charge at the end of the day. So one overnight charge got me through the entire day of shooting, The good thing about doing like a product video would be that obviously the cuts are pretty short, so you don't have to keep recording for an extremely long time, as opposed to like, say you're doing a vlog or an interview where you're probably doing like 5-minute, 10-minute recordings at a time, depending on what kind of shooter you are. I can see that kind of being an issue. It probably will drain the battery life a lot faster, and the overheating thing, especially if you're vlogging and you're just shooting 10 minutes straight, that might be an issue. But for the purposes of what we were doing today, it was very good.
I think from what I saw of you shooting on the phone and the footage that you came away with, I think if you were a vlogger and a content creator and you didn't have any experience with a more advanced full frame camera, you just wanted to shoot something that would look good, but would also teach you some of the basics of how to use those more advanced cameras, this would be a great phone to invest in.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun to use, and if it's something you have as like your A camera for vlogging or a B camera, that you obviously, if you buy a smartphone, it's gonna be in your pocket at all times. So
right.
You just have this thing in your pocket that can shoot 4K 120 anytime you want. It's pretty awesome.
How do you think this phone compares to something like the Xperia 1 Mark III?
That's a good, yeah, so we made, our last video was on the 1 Mark III, right? That was fun to use too. I like that one has more lens. It has a telephoto lens option, which is really cool. I think that, and we shot in very different scenarios because we shot that on like a super sunny day, if I remember.
Outside in a park, yeah.
This was like in a dark studio, it's like the exact opposite. But I think looking at the 4K footage on this, actually, even though it did have weird issues at 120, the 4K footage at 60 looks, I think, a lot nicer than the Xperia Mark III, which I'm not sure if they're doing something different.
Yeah, I think I would say if I was to assess, you know, like which one is better for me, if I was planning to shoot video, this phone definitely is your best choice. Whereas the 1 Mark III, it has 4 different focal lengths, 3 cameras, probably better for the stills, really.
Yeah, which is definitely an interesting direction for Sony to go in. It's like a video focused camera and a photo focused camera, and they're both smartphones.
I know we didn't talk a lot about the actual smartphone capabilities of this smartphone, but as far as we can tell, it's got a lot of the same features as some of the other Xperia phones. Really well regarded in terms of smartphone capabilities.
Snapdragon 888.
Yeah, like the fastest 5G processor, does everything you would want an Android smartphone to do. It has the
120 hertz?
Yeah, it's excellent refresh rate, stereo speakers, battery life is pretty good. It's a good smartphone. It just happens to also be an incredible camera.
Yeah, we wanted to focus this video on the camera because it is the eye for imaging.
Right.
If we haven't reiterated that enough.
And I think that concludes our video for today. Thanks for joining us. And if you liked it, please like and drop us a comment below.
Don't forget to subscribe to Focus Camera for more content.